Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. Remasters are an interesting idea, aren't they? Especially when it comes to PC. We often think that remasters are unnecessary for this platform, considering that modding and, of course, simple things like increasing the resolution or applying some sort of third-party anti-aliasing can improve the look of a game no end, despite its age. However, there are certain games that never make their way to PC, and there seems to be a fairly recent trend both amongst Western and Japanese developers to actually bring these games later onto PC, and for the most part, it's a fairly welcome trend. I have no issue with getting these games a lot later as long as, you know, we get them, and we get them in a reasonable state. Marvel Ultimate Alliance was something that was missing from the PC library for a very long time. Came out originally in 2006 on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3. And it was something of a spiritual successor to X-Men Legends, which was a really cool action RPG based, of course, on the Marvel X-Men franchise. So it was cool to see this finally pop up on Steam, which happened to sync up with its Xbox One and PlayStation 4 re-release. Now, this game clocks in at $40, which, for a game that's now 10 years old, is to some degree kind of taking the piss. You can get both together, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 for $60, which is a little bit of a better deal, but it is what many would view as fairly typical Activision price gouging. They are not known for their sale prices, and they're certainly not known for devaluing their properties, like, you know, lowering the price on a 10-year-old game. What I was a little concerned about, however, is whether or not the PC port would be any good, and I found some thoroughly bizarre little things going on with this one that I'd like to make you aware of before you decide to pull the trigger. Let's head on over to the options menu, which is a lovely little adventure. Now, for the most part, you think the options menu is kind of well put together, considering it actually has mouse control, which is fairly rare, considering it's a game that's 10 years old. Credit for that. See a few different options here. You can set up whether or not you want subtitles, always nice. Click to move on or off, which you may notice is something of a key feature and also a part of the incredibly confusing control scheme that I'll be talking about in this video. Separate audio sliders, at least for effects and music, that's cool. Would have been nice to see a master slider, but you know, I'll take it, that's not too bad. But then we get to the video options and things get a little bit weird. So, for the most part, when you have resolution options, what you want is a drop-down menu, and the reason for that is it can take forever to find your appropriate resolution. This is especially true when, for some reason, the game decides to put multiple versions of the same resolution into the menu, but with different refresh rates, which the game then completely and totally ignores, which is a bit of a weird one. So you see I'm set to 2560 by 1440 here at 85 Hz, which is a very weird refresh rate. You think, oh, well, it probably just offers all the refresh rates up to whatever your native refresh rate is, which in my case is 144. No, that would be way too easy. So, as you can see, as I hit this button, this has pretty much reached the edge of what the game can support. 85 Hz at 2560 or 1440. Is there any particular reason for that? Well, no, because the game actually, I believe, runs at 120. From what I can tell from the in-game stats. So, this stat is completely irrelevant. Of course, is there a drop-down menu? Well, no, there isn't. But if I keep clicking, what you will notice is I get some bizarre resolutions like 2160 by 1200. But then if I click repeatedly, nothing happens. Which is a little odd, so we could keep clicking, see what would happen there. Evidently, this seems to be the extent that it goes to. So I'm like, alright, fair enough. I get it. I'll just go backwards and see what we can find. This is what we find. What a jump! You'd expect this to maybe go down to, I don't know, 1080p, a sensible and commonly used resolution. No. You want 1366 by 768? You can have that, and then you can have that again, so you've got to hit that twice, for some reason. So there's 2 copies of that. Don't know why. Then you get the 60Hz version. There's 2 copies of that, too. But there's a 144Hz version of 1360 by 768, for some reason. There's actually 2 of those. You get 2 of those too. 100 Hz. Very common refresh rate there. And then you keep going and going and going, and you get some 4:3 resolutions that are not commonly used, but at random refresh rates. So, oh, you want 144, 120? Yeah, you can have that. Some of these, they're duplicated, some of them are not, which is great. And I keep going, and eventually, after about 5 minutes, what I'll do is I'll find myself back at 640 by 480. If I want 1080p, though, I'm fresh out of luck. That's not there for some reason. Couldn't tell you why. It's a magical, mystical adventure we have right here. But it's so nice for them to support these ancient resolutions of 720 by 480. I mean, good lord. And yet not support 1080p! I don't understand it. I have to wonder, and now we've skipped right the way back to 2160 by 1200. Yeah, very common, that one. I don't know what's going on with this resolution options menu. It's thoroughly bizarre to miss out on those resolutions. I have to wonder if it's got something to do with the fact that it is a 1440p monitor, and that's confusing the game in some way. I don't know, but yeah, I'm kind of locked into this menu right now. I've got to hit, no, not 2, no. Yeah, navigating this menu is more bizarre than you might think. You can actually get stuck in the menus quite easily, and in order to get out of them, it can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. Now it's claiming, of course, the game is going to run at 640 by 480, which is not, by the way. I'd have to restart the game in order to get it running at 640 by 480, because apparently there is a game in 2016 that you have to restart in order to change the resolution option of. How do I get out of this? Oh, God knows. I think the only way to do it is by hitting left control in order to go back in the tabbed menu here. Full screen on or off, that's very exciting. Graphics quality, okay, I'm sure you'd love to see this. Oh, wait, it's non-existent. It's completely non-existent. This option is here for no reason, because it doesn't do anything. So if you want to change that, I don't know. I mean, I went into Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 to see whether or not that was any better. Thankfully that was. That seemed to have working graphics presets, at least to some degree, low, medium, and high. And the menu was a little easier to navigate, but this is just thoroughly bizarre. Thoroughly bizarre. And things only get weirder when you go to the controls menu. Oh my. So you got player 1, 2, 3, and 4 because you can play this game in co-op, and that's actually a great way to play it. You know, it's a really awesome 4-player action RPG / brawler type game. It's really great. So, device, keyboard, and mouse. If I want to select anything else, well, I can't. I'm going to assume that's because my Xbox One pad isn't turned on. But you've got custom or default configuration. This also doesn't do anything. Just want to point that out. You've got under that, action binding 1 and 2. Do they do anything? No. No, they make noises, but nothing happens. Any attempt to rebind any of the keys is going to result in no luck at all. Which is great. So, let's jump into the game and see what happens with the keyboard and mouse controls. What I'm basically saying here, by the way, is if you're going to pick this game up, you'd probably best have a 360 or Xbox One controller, because otherwise you're going to have a hell of an interesting time. So here we go, we finally make our way in. You'll see the game is actually rendering at 2560 by 1440. It looks a little old, but not too bad. You know, it's a 12-year-old game. When you throw that much resolution in a game like that, it tends to look pretty good. So moving, at least in this case, is done with the mouse, so Diablo style, but you can also do it with WAS and D. Fair enough. Okay. If you want to skip between heroes, you can use the cursor keys. That makes sense. Okay, so let's get to some fighting, shall we? If we left-click, this will move you around. If you left-click on an enemy, that will actually attack. If you right-click, that will actually give you a heavy attack, which is great. So you might be thinking, alright, well, in that case, in order to use a skill, all you need to do is hit 1, right? I mean, the hotkey would correspond. No, because 1 is also basic attack. Yeah. If you actually want to use your skill, you have to use a combination of keys. Control and 1, which is amazing. I mean, on the keyboard, you have quite a lot of spare buttons. I can't imagine why having control and 1 would be a good idea. Incidentally, as you can see, using left click to attack is highly unreliable. Half the time it doesn't actually work, which is pretty damn annoying. It'll run you behind instead. So what I would recommend is you head over to options and turn click to move off, because if you don't, then you're probably going to find this game to be nightmarish to control with keyboard and mouse. I'm currently trying to actually save these options and hoping they actually will. There we go. So now I shouldn't be able to move with... No, escape doesn't get you out of the options menu. You have to hit 2. God knows why. So now I can actually attack with this option. It's crazy to me to think that that would be the default selection. Does it help? I mean, it helps a bit, because instead of moving and getting hit by the enemy, it actually guarantees that you will attack. But this should be default. And now, in order to activate powers, I'm having to use a key combination. Do they not know that we have 100+ buttons on the keyboard that work really well for this? Well, I'm sure they would if key rebinding actually worked in any way. But it doesn't. I mean, we could just use 3, 4, 5, and 6 for the skills. That would probably make sense. What does 3 even do? 3 is jump! It's jump! Why is it jump? I don't know. But I think this may be the only game where I've ever seen 3 and space bound to jump. Wild. Quite interesting. Yes, in order, by the way, to actually activate your skill, you have to take your hands off the movement controls. Yes, because Control and 1 requires you to take your hands off W, A, S, and D. There are not that many keyboard and mouse-based control setups for an action RPG that I've seen that have been set up in a weirder and more useless way. But Marvel Ultimate Alliance has managed to top most of these things. Incidentally, you can also click this, you know, which is actually not a terrible way of doing it if it ever works. Because when you're moving, it deselects and reselects the skill over and over and over again. So the only time you can actually use it by clicking is when you stop moving. Yeah, clunky as all hell. It's quite the treat, really. Quite the treat. What I would say is that Marvel Ultimate Alliance is a great game. You know, it was a great game when it first came out. It's still a great game. Yes, press 4 to open the door. That's a logical thing to do. But I don't know who ported this, frankly. It could be Raven. You know, Raven was the original developer. I certainly hope it wasn't Raven, because I like to think of Raven a little better than that, you know? They made some great games, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance is a good game. But this port seems to be made by somebody who has never used the PC before. If you want to pick this up, I would strongly suggest that you do so with a controller. You'll have a much better time of it. It's usable with keyboard and mouse, but without an actual working rebindable keys menu, you know, that menu seems half-finished. It doesn't even make sense. What does binding 1 and 2 even mean? The game never says. It doesn't seem to matter whether or not you pick default or custom bindings, because none of them work anyway. Just, for the love of God, use a controller. Otherwise, you're gonna have an unpleasant time, to say the least. And the price, I mean, the price is pretty damn cheeky, even for Activision. This is a 12-year-old game. Not brilliant. Play it with a controller and maybe wait for the inevitable discount. I probably would not pay $40 for a 12-year-old game in this state. Now, this is barely a remaster. In fact, it's not. You know, let's call it what it is, not a remaster at all. It's just a simple ported, up-resed version of the original. It's actually missing content, if you can believe that. The Gold Edition has several heroes which are not available in this version, and there don't actually appear to be any ways to get them on PC either. Which, again, is mind-boggling. But this is not the way to do remasters if you want to encourage consumer confidence. This is not the way to do ports of 10-year-old games on PC if you want to encourage consumer confidence. This is kind of farcical in many ways. And that's a shame, because as I said, the game is good. The game has always been good. It's just this version is a mess. An absolute mess. There you go, folks. There's a look at the rather bizarre port of Marvel Ultimate Alliance available on PC. Let's bear in mind, by the way, it thinks it's running at 640 by 480 because, you know, restarting games for resolution is a thing that happens these days. What even is this? This is unfinished. This doesn't make any sense. Oh, God. Well, I mean, at least the port of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 must be better than that, right? For fuck's